Morning guys, I'm the Tech Prepper. Hope you're all doing well. I'm out here in the Tonto National Forest. I wasn't planning on filming a video today, but I happen to have the two radios that I had planned for my next video. Now we're going to talk about how I'm making a transition from one everyday carrier radio, which is my Yaesu FT-60R, to the Yaesu VX-6R. So if you're interested, stick around. All right, so let's frame this video just a little bit. I'm a prepper at heart, got into amateur radio to round out my communications, and when I did my research, I wanted to find a time-tested radio, and the top of the list was the Yaesu FT-60R. This radio has been on the market since 2005 and is still in production. Likewise, the VX-6R has been on the market since 2006 and still is produced today. So it spoke a lot for these radios. I have logged about 2,500 miles in the last 2 years with this particular FT-60, and it has served me pretty well. There was one incident that forced me to make the switch to the more ruggedized VX-6R. But before we get into that, let me talk about some of the features that I love about this radio, because I am going to keep it. I have 4 of them in my fleet, and 2 of them are going to go in a Faraday cage, 1 in my get home bag, and 1 in my go bag. Now, simplicity of programming from the front panel is one thing I love about the FT-60. Very simple to do, very easy to establish muscle memory, and that's what I look for. I like to be able to know my equipment cold. The second thing I love about the FT-60 is the battery life. These batteries will last a fairly long time depending on how you use them. For public service events, I typically can work 2 back-to-back shifts, which is usually about 16 to 18 hours, and I rarely have a problem with needing multiple batteries for a single event. And the batteries are fairly inexpensive, so these are easy to outfit quite a number in your fleet. Now, the third thing I love about this is the amount of physical knobs and dials. It has independent volume and squelch, and those are 2 features I use quite a bit to have pleasant audio to listen to. I'm really surprised how many radios don't have independent physical volume and squelch knobs. I don't like it when they're nested in the menus. I have used this successfully with digital, specifically with the DigiRig Mobile, so that was a big perk. Now, in terms of the downsides of this radio, the biggest drawback and what forced me to move away from it, I didn't want to move off of it, is that it does not have an IP rating, and I actually damaged and destroyed one of my 4 units while on a trail run with copious amounts of sweat and salt. A buddy thankfully has recovered it for me. Haven't received it yet, but I hear it's back in working order. But that event alone was enough for me to look for another radio that had a lot of these characteristics, but had an IP67 rating. The second drawback of this radio is the 3.5 millimeter audio jack, and the problem with this radio is that that jack can back out very easily, even with subtle movements, and when it backs out, it will engage the push-to-talk and start transmitting. So I had issues with this with the digital interface. I have issues with this with my mic that I clip to my plate carrier. So those 2 issues had really made me rethink the radio. So finally, I decided to switch over to the VX-6R. I bought this a year ago. On day 1, I did a submersion test in the pool underwater while swimming with the pups. It survived, but I had a real hard time learning how to program this easily from the front panel. So I put this aside. I pulled it out every once in a while. So when the FT-60 died, I decided to give this another go, and I got to tell you, this thing is amazing. So first and foremost, it is very ruggedly constructed. I could drop this thing probably from a 2-story building and it'll survive. It's a little bit smaller, which is kind of nice for my portable use case, but everything on this unit is completely sealed. One of the nice things about it is that it has, well, I'm not going to open it up right now, but it has a threaded tip ring sleeve connector for the audio interface. So that problem on the FT-60 of the mic backing out is no longer a problem. Those cables are a little bit hard to find, same thing with accessories, but they do exist. I'll do a video on the accessories for this later. The other cool feature about this is that it has a DC barrel connector on the side, and this radio can be directly field charged from a 12-volt battery in the field. We'll do a video on that one as well. The FT-60 also has a DC jack, but I think models after 2013, you cannot field charge directly. You need a cradle. So this radio can now basically withstand all of my sweat and salt. It can be field charged, and I think it's going to serve me really well. The other cool thing about this radio is that it has very audible clicks for the volume and the selectors. Listen. And this is actually kind of important because I actually figured out how to interface this with the DigiRig Mobile, another video on that topic, and I can actually set the volume control to, let's say, 6 clicks from the bottom, so I know exactly where I need it calibrated. So really cool. Now, this radio does not have an independent squelch, but I have a pro tip I'll share with you in the next video that shows you how in one push of the button, how to be able to use the knobs to quickly adjust the squelch. This radio is also interesting in that it has very wideband receive coverage. It wasn't something I really needed, but now that I've been playing with my software-defined radio and exploring more of the radio spectrum, I have absolutely fallen in love with this feature. So this will work from 400 kilohertz all the way to the high 900 megahertz. So I get AM broadcast listening, so great for local news. I get shortwave listening on AM, so I can listen to news from around the world. In fact, I did Russia, India, Australia, and a few other countries not too long ago. So that was a lot of fun. And then higher up in the UHF, I have 2 meter, 440, and this is a tri-bander. It'll actually also do 222. Not a whole lot of activity out here on that front, but it's supported. And then airband and all the other good stuff. The other cool thing about this one is that this one can be modded in software with a Mars Cap mod, which unlocks it. So I will do a video on why I also believe the VX-6R is the best GMRS and FRS and MERS radio, and a whole bunch of other things because of its ability to be fully unlocked with the Mars Cap mod. Now, things I do not like about this radio. I don't like it that it doesn't have independent physical squelch knob, but I have solved that problem. The battery in my mind is the biggest drawback. One, the battery life is not great compared to the FT-60. The batteries themselves are more than double the price. I think these run about $80 for the OEM ones, and then you can find some knockoffs for about $30 to $40. The battery tray on this one that takes the AA's also only runs at about 4 volts, which basically means you can only run this radio at 300 milliwatts on transmit instead of its full 5. The FT-60, I forgot to mention, has a AA battery tray, and you can run the full 5 watts. So really cool. So there are trade-offs with anything, but like I said, the biggest and most compelling reason for me to move to the VX-6R is that I really can't destroy it in the environment I'm in with the activities I do, and it is standing up to the sweat and moisture nicely. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick little overview of why I'm switching from one radio to the next and the features I look for in a radio. If you happen to have similar requirements, I really recommend you take a look at both the FT-60 and the VX-6R. All right, so we're going to continue a mini-series on doing digital with this guy, the Mars Cap mod, and a few other goodies. With that said, I'm the Tech Prepper. Be strong, be safe, and be prepared. It's true for any 3.5 millimeter connector you put into here. So for those two reasons, the lack of ingress protection, fucking A, man.